This is the Speaking of Writers podcast. I'm Steve Richards. Welcome to another episode. Today we're diving deep into the shadows of American history with best-selling author and veteran screenwriter Chris Hauty. His new book, Dead Ringer, is a pulse-pounding, high-octane conspiracy thriller that thrusts readers into a dangerous quest for truth surrounding the events of November 22nd, 1963. The story follows a disgraced former Secret Service officer and a brilliant Jesuit professor as they seek to uncover the mysteries behind the JFK assassination, unaware that the cabal they're investigating may still be very much alive and lethal. With decades of Hollywood storytelling under his belt, Chris Hauty has crafted a twist-packed story of redemption, truth, and deadly secrets. And that twist at the end, well, every reviewer agrees you will not see it coming. And Chris Hauty joins me now here on the Speaking of Writers podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Steve. That sounds pretty good, but I want to get my hands on that book.
Yeah, it does. And the book is out now. So, what sparked the idea for Dead Ringer and why return to the JFK assassination?
Well, I think many authors of a certain age have a JFK book in them, hiding somewhere, whether it's in a desk drawer or percolating in their head. But I was alive when the events occurred, and and then I think it was Oliver Stone's movie JFK really kind of reignited not only my fascination with the topic, but also the nations and the worlds. Um, so I think what really got this book going, oddly enough, was a song. It was in 2020 when Bob Dylan kind of shocked everybody with a 18-minute long epic song called "Murder Most Foul," which really kind of got me back into thinking about that time and the mysteries and so I was coming up on the end of writing the fourth book in my Haley Chill series and was looking around for something new to write about. I wanted to do a standalone, and you know, remembered hearing that song and being affected by it, and started reading some books. There's only probably about 40,000 different fiction and nonfiction books on the topic. It's not exactly virgin territory, but I think the one that really got me thinking the most about a way into the story was James Douglas's JFK and the Unspeakable: Why He Died and Why It Matters. And that really provided some of the ideas behind possible conspiracies. But the other goal I set for myself was to write a book that's more entertaining than sort of a dry summation of possible conspiracies and why some are true and possibly true or false. Some of those books get a little dense, and I'm not a nonfiction writer anyway. I'm a fiction writer. So this was very much meant as a work of not only fiction, but also entertainment. So the goal I set for myself was to come up with a twist and an answer to that eternal question of who killed JFK in a way that no one else had really tried before. So I came up with the ending, and I think what is a pretty original twist first, and then sort of reverse engineered the story behind that answer.
Was there a moment in the writing where you realized this story is going to surprise a lot of people?
When I came up with that twist,
Mm.
I thought that this was it's ambitious. There's some ambition behind making what I come up with believable. And I think if I can judge by some of the reviews, both by readers of advanced review copies and also in the trade press, I think I pulled that off. And so, um, yeah, that was, I mean, I've always, I'm, my MO as a thriller writer is to be twisty and come up with big twists, not only through the course of the story, but particularly in the end. And so, yeah, I thought this was a real shocker, and if I could pull it off, uh, that it would make for a really great book.
Yeah, you mentioned the reviewers, and I agree too. The addictive pacing here and the twist-filled plot. How do you balance historical mysteries with propulsive thriller storytelling?
Oh, I think that comes from my screenwriting,
Mm.
the 3 decades plus of screenwriting, and you really don't have that much real estate in a screenplay, and the attention span of your typical producer or movie star or studio executive is fairly short, and
Mm.
so you need to write. Not only the prose needs to be grabby and tactile, uh, uh, but the story really needs to move along. You can't waste a lot of time. So I really think I've brought a lot of my. I can't help but do that. Bring that 3 decades of screenwriting baggage, or tool chest, whichever way you want to look at it, into the game of writing a real clean, fast-paced story and prose. I like to keep it clean and very readable.
Chris, how did you become a writer? Was there a teacher who inspired you at a young age?
My dad was a college professor who I think had always wanted to be a writer, and so that was an early influence. My oldest brother had some ambitions to be a writer. My dad ended up being a psychologist, and my older brother ended up being a surgeon. I'm the
Mm.
only one. I think I wasn't smart enough or had a good enough memory to be either of those two, have either of those two careers. So, I stuck with the writing from a very early age. And my earliest, literary influence was the Ernest Hemingway, which I'm sure is fairly typical again of writers of male writers of a certain age, and that prose, was just so accessible for a 12 or 13-year-old kid, and deceptively difficult to really imitate. And so, yeah, I would say that it was family, and then just kind of falling in love with certain writers along the way. Ernest Hemingway was the early one, and then I kind of had a poetry bug for a while and was reading William Carlos Williams. And then in college, uh, those were the Charles Bukowski years, both short stories and poetry. And then towards getting out of college and moving to New York, I had aspirations of being the next Sam Shepard. So
Mm.
all along the way, I've been inspired by certain writers to, write things. I've done them all. Write poems, plays, short stories, screenplays, things that are accessible. They're not. I don't. I've never been partial towards overly cerebral work. It's always been in one genre or another, but I always aspire to elevate uh, the story and characters and the writing above just pure, unadorned genre.
Let's talk about characters and themes in this book. Joe Mingus, a flawed, haunted character. What makes him compelling to write?
Oh, he was a great character to write. I like his attitude. He's certainly an archetype of gruff, vaguely anti-hero characteristics, who is ultimately driven by a fairly elemental moral code. And so, that kind of uh, basic instinctual response to the world and incidents and the people that he encounters can be somewhat problematic to live by and makes for a lot of conflict. But ultimately, for me, he's a very heroic character in the sense that he does, he sticks to those principles, and it puts him in jams. And he's a disgraced former Secret Service agent who had ended up in spent time in federal prison for lying to federal investigators. He suffered because of his of his code, of sticking by his colleagues, his fellow Secret Service guys. And that same code of conduct puts him on the journey that this book is all about, in that he wants to honor the last wishes of a former love. And so I just love characters like that. They're complex and fairly, not simple is not the right word, both
Mm.
complicated and not complicated at the same time. Uh, so yeah, I really love his character.
Chris, Father Verdugo is a fascinating addition here, a Jesuit scholar thrown into an espionage world. What does he add to the story?
Well, he almost, I hate to call him a sidekick, but um, he's certainly Mingus's foil. I mean, I've always thought of the book as a two-hander, but I would probably lean towards Mingus being the protagonist, and Verdugo being something of not necessarily an antagonist, but a foil. So he brings all the information. I need some way to communicate just tons of detail and information that I only kind of scrape the surface of all the JFK assassination lore that's out there. But so he's a bit of a mouthpiece to get a lot of that information across. But also, these two men, while they may be opposites, um, character-wise, they really help each other out. And I don't, they sort of complete the whole. I don't think either one character could have survived this journey without the other. So it's really to balance out the gruff uh, uh, aspects of Mingus, and make for a complete sort of investigative team, and sort of the most classic sense of investigators on a clue pursuit that you'll see throughout the history of film and books and TV.
Redemption, truth, and the past coming back for us. These themes run strong in this book. What were you hoping readers would take from this?
Well, like I said, the book is meant as entertainment, I think at its core. I always think that it's a sort of uh, what Quentin Tarantino does with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and the way that he takes historical incidents surrounding the Manson murders, and sort of makes it his plaything, and sort of turns things around so that the movie viewer might experience a fairly horrible uh, aspect of American history, uh, and look at it in a different light. Um, so, I'm not trying to, obviously with this book kind of, rip the lid off of everything that's, the Warren Commission report, and revealed a greater truth. It's more of just of a way of, if the reader can look at historical incidents and and see that these things aren't set in stone, that it's possible to re-examine, and I think in my manipulating it and changing things around, um, I will, hopefully inspire readers to dig into one or more of those 40,000 books about JFK and see what they make of it. Because no one's ever going to have no one, there's never going to be the complete and final truth surrounding the JFK assassination. I don't think. I mean, they can release as many documents as they want. They just a new tranche of documents were released not too long ago by the Trump administration, and it provided absolutely no further,
Right.
resolution to this great mystery. Um, so if that answers your question, it's just hopefully that people will be curious, and they'll have an interesting, compelling, and engaging read, and want to dig into the same history themselves, and explore it themselves.
So is Dead Ringer the beginning of something larger? Could Mingus and Verdugo return, perhaps?
I didn't contemplate that. I started this book and finished it with the notion of it being a standalone, but another podcast host, oh no, actually it was I think it was the person who interviewed me for Publishers Weekly asked me if I considered that Mingus would be a franchise character, and I'd love to do that. I'm not sure that Verdugo, I sort of spell things out a little bit in terms of his path forward, and I don't really want to provide any
Right.
spoilers about that, but um, I see his I would imagine I could dig into a book about Mingus that might mention Verdugo in passing, or he might make an appearance, but it would probably be a Joe Mingus story.
What's
So
the
yeah,
best
it's possible. It's possible.
what's the best thing about being an author and the best thing about being a screenwriter?
Best thing about being a screenwriter is if you're lucky enough to uh, see one of your screenplays actually produced, and you're part of that process, that production process. That the times that um, I was able to participate in production uh, of a couple different movies, that was a lot of fun. That I cannot deny that that's not fun. Um, so that's great. That's the best thing about being a screenwriter, and that's about 0.05% of your time as a professional screenwriter. The other 99.5%, if that equals 100%, um, is can be pretty horrible. Uh, there's just not a ton of respect. I don't care how successful you are as a screenwriter, unless you're a writer director. It's not. you just don't have any control. You have zero control.
Yeah.
The moment you sign a contract, everything you write is owned by somebody else. The best thing about being a novelist is all those things that a screenwriter isn't, having complete control over your work. I mean, there's just so many different reasons. You asked me what the best thing is. I could go down a list of the great things, but the best I would have, if I had to put it in a word, is the freedom that you have as a novelist. You really can do anything, and that is both in a micro level of like you're making all the choices, big and small, and then in the bigger level of like, I've written 6.5 books now, the half being a novella, and the extent that I had any kind of gatekeeper or decision maker um, above me or separate from me was the extent of just sort of running a one line idea past my editor, um, and then being told to go for it and being encouraged to have a really great time. So that's it's the freedom of being a novelist is is just not something you experience as a screenwriter.
Are you a coffee shop writer or a late night writer, early morning?
I for 1,000 years I've been a 9 to 5er. Yeah, and always, the same schedule forever. And I think I've spent mainly either I've had an office. Uh, when I was raising kids, I had an office outside the home, and that was kind of cool, because you feel like you're a real professional writer. Um, I very almost have never, done the coffee shop thing. Um, Very briefly, I used to go to a hotel in downtown Santa Monica, the Corona Del Mar. No, the Corona. God, I'm forgetting the name now. Hotel lobbies are fantastic places to write. I don't know that that's not necessarily a secret, but I don't think, and I would see other writers there occasionally in the lobby, but I prefer something like that to a coffee shop. There's just way too much activity in a coffee shop, and wearing a big set of cans on my over my ears and sitting at a little table in a whether it's a Starbucks or independent just doesn't seem like a really conducive environment for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. A bunch of authors, it's probably 50-50 that I have on the podcast here will say they need that noise.
Stimulation.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
stimulation, exactly. And some, of course, like, solitude and their writing space. But that was going to be my next question too. It sounds like that hotel lobby is your favorite spot to write in Los
Hotel Del
Angeles.
Mar. I think that's
The
what it
Hotel
was
Del
called.
Mar?
Yeah, in downtown San Monica. Beautiful lobby. And I used to be able to get there early. I would go there early, even when I had an office in downtown Santa Monica, a really nice office where there were other very successful screenwriters there. But I used to love to go there early in the morning. And it would be empty, but you would sit at a table and the enormous windows right next to you with overlooking the Santa Monica beach and the ocean. And it was really pretty great. And um, they wouldn't mind because no one else was coming in at that
Yeah.
time. But that opportunity has passed. I think that they don't allow um, uh, what did they used to call writers and schmucks with Olivetti's or something like that was the old time Hollywood expression for writers. I don't think they allow schmucks with Olivetti's in the hotel there anymore.
So what are you working on next?
Oh, I've finished a manuscript and in process of rewriting and polishing another standalone, and it's I think I have a little bit of JFK on the brain from Dead Ringer, but this one is actually Dead Ringer, of course, is set in present day. The one I'm working on now is set during the Cuban Missile Crisis. in 1962 at Guantanamo Bay. So that's a real pressure cooker situation. They were at the tip of the sword.
Yes.
There were Soviet missile batteries in the mountains surrounding Gitmo at the time, ready to let loose and wipe that place off the face of the earth. And I don't think people quite realize how close we came.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was really close. Most people don't know that there was an American jet that was shot down over Cuba fairly late into those 10 days. I don't remember right now. It might have been like day 8 or something like that. Shot down, and the pilot was killed. And, that was like, that really brought things and negotiations to a real crisis moment. But anyway, so that's the setting, and it's actually it's a it's a serial killer uh, mystery thriller. So it's two investigators from the Office of Naval Investigations who arrive at Gitmo to investigate the death of a Cuban worker, Cuban national. Uh, Gitmo employed probably about 3 or 4 thousand Cuban nationals at the time. There were fewer and fewer as Castro's regime went on, but in 1962 there were still around 2 or 3 thousand working. So one of them's ended up in the bay and pulled out of the bay dead, and so they've come to investigate. More Cuban bodies turn up, and so it's a fun, it's an interesting book. It's dark and atmospheric, and you have this backdrop of impending, the world ending, and meanwhile we have these two bickering, fairly hostile to each other civilian agents. One of whom is a kind of a gristled veteran. The other one, it's his first investigation, who are thrust together. Book is told in dual first person. So as we progress through the story, we hear from each guy, each character, and it's been a challenge. I like a challenge when I set out with a new project. So this is the first time I've written in first person, and to make matters even harder for myself, it's a dual first person. So.
Well, that was quite a tease. That's coming next from Chris Hauty. Right now, he's got Dead Ringer out, a razor sharp modern dive into one of America's most enduring mysteries. It is out now. ChrisHauty.com is the website, and Dead Ringer available now wherever books are sold. Chris, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, Steve, thanks for having me. A lot of fun talking with you.
Thank you. Same here. And for more interviews, follow us on your favorite podcast app. This is the Speaking of Writers podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'm Steve Richards. I'll talk to you again next time.